joining us on Lifers. I'm Laura, and this is
Jay.
And today we are so excited because we have Erin with us. Erin, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell everybody what you are. Are you a donor? Are you a transplant recipient? Do you work in the field?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name's Erin Hoover. I am a living donor. We're probably, I think, a year and a half out from I donated a kidney to a friend's dad. And he's doing amazing. I'm doing amazing. The entire thing has absolutely blown away my expectations of any fears that I had from the beginning till now. I would say I'm healthier. I live a better life now just from being a donor, which has been a really amazing, impactful thing for myself. You know, I thought I'm doing this for someone else and they're going to have a better life, but I have reaped probably more benefits for myself personally, health-wise, than I ever imagined or ever expected.
Wow, that's great.
Awesome. I can't wait to hear more about that. So you said that you donated to a friend's dad, right? So the friend's dad. How did that all come about? How did you hear about it? Kind of what was your thought process when, I'm assuming, you found out the need. So tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. So I have, in my mind, in my family, there has been people with kidney issues before, but never something that was really very close to me until my grandpa had kidney disease. He ended up on dialysis. My best friend's son was born with severe kidney defects and has very limited functioning in his kidney. He does really well. They monitor it really well. There's no indication for him of whether or not he will someday have to have a transplant or not. He's doing really well right now. But those couple of things made it a little bit more top of mind as I got older. But I donate blood. I marked it on the back of my driver's license, right? Should that ever come up, of course, take whatever you need that I can't have anymore. But then it was like a lightning bolt, to be honest. The friend's dad, who is Pastor PJ at Good Shepherd at the church that I know Laura through, he posted on Facebook. God loves social media for stuff like this, to be honest, because I probably would have found out about it through that, but it was really through that initial post where Pastor PJ shared it, and it really struck me right away. And then I thought, well, no, that's no, I'm not supposed to do that, right? I just think I need to help everybody, or I'm just drawn to it emotionally, So that was in August of 2018, I believe. Gosh, that sounds like forever ago, right? Especially this year. And so from between August and November, I wrestled, I prayed, I ignored, I said no. I really went through kind of a very internal process of, why do I feel so strongly towards this? And why do I feel so convicted that I'm supposed to do something about this? And I just wasn't sure until I really, 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 really prayed hard about, why am I so convicted about this? Am I really supposed to do this, right? And just kind of letting my heart do a little bit more leading rather than my head about it, because I have 4 young children. I thought, even if I call them and tell them I'm maybe interested or I'd like to hear more, they're going to say, yeah, you can't do that because you have 4 kids and, there's too much risk. It might be too hard for you, whatever. I didn't hear any of that. I heard the opposite. Yep, you should do this. You should pursue this. We need more donors. You're very healthy. This is exactly what you should be doing. And I also kind of thought to myself, okay, well, I'll start the process, but at some point it's possible I may have to back out, or they may just tell me, no, I'm not qualified, or I shouldn't be doing this. And that never happened. It just kept going and kept going once I started the process. The whole process was probably about a full year of testing. I know that some people can probably do that faster, but just given our schedule here and my work, I did it as fast as I could. Like every step of the way that I got, a blood draw or request to go do something, or had to do a psychological evaluation virtually. I did those things as fast as I could, but it still took about a full year from the time that I, inquired about it to the actual donation. So it was from November, and then the transplant happened the following October. So I guess a little under a year, but I felt like I need to do this as fast as I can because his health was declining. He was not on dialysis when I started the process, but within the last month before the transplant, he ended up on dialysis, which was really hard for me because I was like, let's just do this right now so that he doesn't have to do, any more dialysis. My grandpa was on dialysis for a little while before he died. So in the end, it was really a matter of, I saw it on Facebook and felt called, convicted, whatever you want to call it, spent about 3 months wrestling with all of that. And once I started the process, really felt confirmed every step of the way, felt like, yep, this was supposed to be me. I was supposed to give my kidney to Steve, and that is how it was designed and planned long before I ever knew about it. That's really what it felt like.
That's so awesome. So I know you live in Illinois. Steve does not.
Right.
He doesn't even live, because he's in Hawaii, correct?
Right.
And the transplant, though, took place in California?
San Francisco, yeah.
San Francisco. Okay.
Wow.
Yep.
So can you tell me a little bit? You weren't even, it wasn't like he was your neighbor.
No.
How did all of that coordination? I know you said, a lot about your job and stuff, but how did that work just with you, with medical appointments? Did you have to go to California a lot? What did that all kind of look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that was really eye-opening for me in terms of, it was really simple and easy, even that far away, that many states away. I'm sure it's even easier and faster to do it when you're just talking about, like, if I were going to, Lurie's in downtown or whatever, Northwestern, right? If I were doing it someone a little bit more locally, but they made the process so simple. It was, the transplant happened at University of California, San Francisco. So UCFS, is how it's known. And they're incredible with kidney transplants. And so they had a very seamless process for doing this with people that didn't live in the same state, that didn't live in California. And they had some really wonderful people on their team that FedExed me everything that I needed. I could go to LabCorp here and get my blood draws. I think the first time I went, it was 20 vials of blood. Maybe that was the second time. And so I was like, do I have any blood left here? So it was kind of a lot, but it's not that hard. They're just, teeny tiny. I don't want to scare anybody about their blood draws, but they were just small. But then the LabCorp right in Naperville FedExed it right back in the shipping materials that UCFS sent. They were super fast. They communicated through my chart. I mean, everything was virtual. It was electronic. I did do my psych eval virtually, just like this. And so I met with a psychologist virtually. But other than that, it was pretty easy because there was good communication back and forth. They had a really good process set up. And I know I'm part of a Facebook group of living donors, and I've seen this, time and time again, that people, especially non-directed donors, who are even more incredible than what I did. Even though Steve was a stranger to me, there was still some, relationship there with the family. There are people in the world who are saying completely non-directed donors and parts of really long, amazing chains that save even more lives, right? And so I've seen stories from those people where they just get on a list and they, go across the country, across state lines to make this happen for people. And it's a really incredible thing. So I think the transplant community in general, and many hospitals specifically, do a really good job of making it happen. For if you're coming forward and saying, I want to be a living donor, they've got the process good and down and make it really easy and seamless for you, as well as make you feel supported and protected. I think that I didn't I care about myself and, my family and all of that, but I was more concerned about Steve, and they treated me the opposite. They were the most concerned for me as the donor and really caring about my feelings and every step of the way. And every step of the way, they really kind of checked in with, if you don't want to do this, we don't want you to feel like you have to do this just because you've started the process. So there was a really good checks and balances of, once I got to the end, I felt fully confirmed that I knew everything I needed to know to do what I had, said I was going to do. And they were really wonderful about my privacy and keeping just kind of my perspective top of mind, even though my perspective was, oh, I'm healthy. I want to do this for someone who really needs it, but I think looking back, that was really helpful, because then it just helped confirmed, I know everything I need to know. I can feel confident in this final decision of doing it once you get that green light from that medical board at the end.
And that really is, correct me if I'm wrong, like that's really a full look at you as a person and your health. Not only, like you said, you're healthy, but they don't just look at your health today, right? They kind of look at everything so that they can see your future too, correct?
Yeah. So it was, and that's why I do think it does take a while to process all of that. Between the blood work, there's a 24-hour urine sample that you have to do, which is super fun. But
all your little ones.
Yeah, they're like, Mommy, what's that big jug in your bathroom? Never mind. Well, yeah, we can talk about that perspective too. I mean, my kids they gained so much from the entire experience, and I've just seen that it impact them in ways I had no idea that it would. But then you also have to do a CT scan of both of your kidneys. And so I definitely, when that happened, I had never had a CT scan, and that machine is just huge and it's loud. And there was a moment in there when I freaked out a little bit and I was like, oh, maybe I really can't do this. Maybe I physically can't do this. Maybe I mentally can't do this. I've done everything up until now, but I am a super healthy person. So I've never really had any experiences in hospitals other than having babies. And I was like, oh, maybe I really have bit off more than I can actually do or handle. And I remember very distinctly in that moment, laying on that CT scan bed, hearing God saying, I've got this. I've got you. And then it just kept coming up. Anytime I had any fears or doubts or worries, that just kept popping in my head. And I felt peace about all of that once I kind of really let it all go and trust the medical professionals, trust that I was doing, what was meant to be. And just kind of reminding myself and telling myself that he's got it, he planned it, he knew what was going to happen, and I didn't need to worry about that anymore. But that CT scan was a little scary just because, it's just a big machine. And then, I thought, gosh, there's a lot of people that have to go through way worse things than this. I have to do this one time to help someone. I can do this, and then a final blood draw. And then before the medical review board, and then maybe there was one last one a week out from the transplant. And so just confirming that nothing has changed. I mean, they're super cautious about the donor's health and making sure that the donor, nothing has changed, nothing has come up, because, things can creep up in a year's time, in a person's body. They also had to, I worked with the psychologist for the psych eval. And then I also had a social worker who contacted me throughout the entire year. She also had to interview my husband, and so get his perspective and feedback on the entire process. And so there's a lot of steps, but all of those things felt like necessary and good, and confirmation that they won't let you get to a point where they don't feel confident that you can do it, you can survive it, you can thrive after it, right? And so I felt, like I said, I felt really confident because of all of that I could trust everything that they were saying and doing, and felt really prepared for
Yeah,
it.
and that's a segue to the question I wanted to ask you. I know the process itself can be really intimidating. So did you have a lot of family support that, whenever you had your doubts, did you have a lot of family support along the way to kind of help push you past the intimidation factor?
I will say yes and no, honestly. Yes. Um, yes, absolutely. Everyone was supportive of the fact that I felt like I wanted to do this and needed to do this and was called to do this. No, because it was also scary for those people seeing it and not knowing everything that I knew, right? So part of that was on me because I was too nervous. I didn't want to share before I was ready, but I was going through the process. I was educating myself, and so by the time I shared it, with people, I knew so much already. And so initially, I think people were scared and nervous and not really sure why I thought I needed to do this.
Yeah.
And so it did take some coaxing, some educating, some encouraging, some here's some resources that I have found really helpful. Let's talk about this. Let's read through this together, that kind of thing. Um, I think there was a pretty significant point, and this is with my own husband. I think he was just scared of losing me and of our family losing me, and he had a hard time with it overall. And Pastor PJ said to him one time when we met, think about how much you love Erin. God loves her more. And he has asked her to do this, or he is, this is what she believes she's doing is God's will. And he will carry her through that. And that really helped him just, in general, feel like, yeah, that's true. And I need to be, less scared and support, and just really get on board with it. But I think, even when we were physically in San Francisco, he was still nervous and scared. And, that's totally normal. So I don't want to say he wasn't supportive, but it's both, right? You want to support the person that you love doing this. If, people watching this are considering being a living donor and wondering how their family is going to react to them. I also think it's okay that he, had those feelings and expressed them and wasn't just, you can't just, blindly accept everything that someone you love does. And so he was supportive, but he also had feelings of being really scared. And would he rather I not have done it? Maybe. On the other side of this, he obviously that's not the same answer he has, but he was just so worried and so scared. And, we do have 4 kids. So it was, I think, a little bit more about just the unknown for him in that. So I don't want to say he didn't support me, but it was both. And I think that's fair. And I think that's valid for, a lot of people. And I see a lot of people coming out saying, no, I'm getting a lot of pushback on this and I'm not sure why. And I really want to do this, but my family is nervous. They're scared. And so I think it just took that education piece, that other bigger network support piece, right? And having people in my support network that didn't really know each other, having them be able to connect and support each other too, I think was really helpful.
And so the 4 kiddos, how did they react to all this? When were they brought in on it? And kind of tell us about their journey with this as well.
Yeah, I was really nervous about when to tell them. So I was like, I don't want to tell them too early because I don't want them to be too worried in advance for too long, but we needed to plan out how that was all going to happen. When I needed to travel to San Francisco, I needed to be there for at least 2 weeks minimum. And so we thought it would be best to schedule it while they were in school. So that was the fall of 2019. just because then everybody had a little part, right? Their teachers still had them during the day, then grandma could have them after school. And then the second week, friends swapped. We had our friends whose son have kidney issues. They came with us to San Francisco because I really wanted them with us. So they came the first week, and then when they came back, they took over for the grandma with the kids. But anyway, logistically that worked out really well. But there was a day where it just kind of felt right to tell them in advance of going there. And so I think, well, I have 3 boys and then a littler one daughter, and she was napping. And so I'm like, okay, I'm just going to talk to the boys first and let them know what is about to happen, And so there were 3 different reactions. My oldest son was in complete awe and was just amazed, right? My second son was the exact opposite and did not want me to do it and was so afraid of what would happen to me. And my third son was grossed out. he thought that was disgusting, that you can take a body part from me and put it in someone else and then it would work. I'm like, that's science. It's fascinating, right? So we kind of had to work through those different reactions, and different emotions. And so, but in the end, we prayed about it. We talked about it at length. We tried to answer all of their questions about it. I think my husband was really supportive to them in helping validate their feelings because he had similar ones, and I don't think that I could have understood going into it. Now on the flip side of it, how impactful it was for them to see me choose something that I was afraid of a little bit, that did scare me, but I believed that God was asking it of me. And so that certain things are challenging and they can be hard and you can be afraid to do them, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do them or that they're not worth it or that God isn't asking that of you. And so it's one thing to say that to our kids, right? We say that to them all the time. They hear that in church, they hear that in their, youth groups and stuff. But they really got to see that. And this is really hard for me because they don't want to brag about me. This isn't about me. This is about what God did through me, right? And so that's what I always try to talk to them about, is that God chose this for me. This was part of my plan and part of my path. But it wasn't always easy and it was scary, but I trusted, right? And so that's what we encourage our kids to do, is when things get hard or they're scary, but it's the right thing to do, that's where your faith comes in. And that's what faith is, right? Because I think faith is a hard thing to describe to kids in the tangible sense. And so this helped them see that lived out and helped us then also kind of identify and encourage them to look for other ways that this happens in the world and how they can live their life the same way, and develop that as they get older. Because obviously I didn't, I won't say how old I am, but in my 30s, and just had this opportunity, but that you can even do this at when you're 10, when you're 9, when you're 7, so we did get to come home a little early, and I'm so grateful for their teachers who were super supportive, because we let them know, we talked to them about it, the extra hugs for them during that week, because just being away was really hard. I've often said that the actual surgery and the transplant and the recovery was easier than missing my humans, right? So but luckily everything went really well and we got the green light to come home early. So we hopped on an earlier flight and we surprised them coming home early. And then I think after that, they were like, do not leave our sides ever again. But they had a good time. They were really supported and really well cared for while they were at home.
Great. I was just thinking when you were describing that it took a whole year for, from the time you really committed yourself into the actual transplant. and just the intangibles people don't think about, that things that have to go right. So you've dedicated yourself to, committed to, yeah, I'm going to go through with this, but then you have to think about your kids and the logistics, who's going to have the kids and who's going to take care of this and who's going to take. So, not only is the transplant itself just such an amazing process, and for everything to line up with you and the donor and everything like that, but just behind the scenes, there's so many things that have to fall in place for that to happen, So I really think people really think about that. That's just again, that's, when you, like you said, if it's ordained through God, then, things seem to fall in place like that. So, but it's just amazing hearing how everything for you kind of, fell in place. And I'm sure it's along the line somewhere, people get caught up, discouraged, and they say, well, I have the best intentions. I want to do this, but I can't because I have another sick person in the family, or whatever may hold you back. Maybe, like you said, lack of support from family or whatever, but just everything, your situation lined up. And it's just amazing that you were able to see it all the way through.
Yeah, that's a really great segue to an additional piece that we really haven't touched on, is the financial piece of this, right? So we had to travel to San Francisco just one time. So luckily I didn't have to go there before the actual surgery. So we just had to go there one time, but that's a plane cost, hotel for 2 weeks or stay somewhere. I don't have any family there. I don't know anybody there. Meals, and then, back here, meals at home too. So like double your grocery bill basically, because your kids still have to eat here. Yeah. Luckily we didn't have to pay for childcare because grandparents were super supportive with that, and friends. And then, I think that's probably the biggest thing. I didn't have any costs after, like medical or anything like that. His insurance covered all of that, but there was still a pretty significant cost just because it wasn't happening right in my backyard, where I could recover at home. And because I was required to recover there for at least 5 days, I think it ended up being, because I was doing really well. We fortunately tapped into this really incredible organization called the American Living Organ Donor Fund, ALODF, right? Yeah. And so they were really helpful in organizing a fundraiser for me. Which I held through Facebook, which was incredible. It was super easy for people to donate. And because I do have a really, really incredible, large support network, we were actually able to raise more money than we physically needed. And that just went into their general fund to help someone else in the future. So not only did it help me through my family and friends, my family and friends were also able to raise money for someone else that they didn't even know, which was just a bonus, right? Like that was just another blessing in the whole process, that it was taken care of financially for me, so that it was no cost. It didn't cost me anything, because I was able to get incredible financial support from family and friends, and above and beyond, to where it impacted somebody else that we don't even know or have any idea of, which is really, really cool.
That's awesome.
That's so cool.
So yeah, they're a really great organization. They have a website and Facebook page and all of that. So they're really helpful for people who are like, I would love to do that, but I don't have the money. I don't have the resources. I only work part-time. So I wasn't going to lose any wages. There's also other organizations out there that assist with people that are going to lose, like if they don't have vacation time, or they're for whatever reason, they can't work a longer period of time. There are organizations out there that also help with that, with lost wages. And so I think that the transplant community is doing a really good job of trying to address any of those barriers from living donors coming forward, right? So those are financial concerns, can be a huge reason that someone won't come forward to donate.
So what would you say was the hardest aspect, the hardest thing for you personally with this whole process?
What do I do with it now? So I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk about it again. I don't know, and I've struggled with this right after too. it was hard for me to put myself out there in the first place, to ask people for money, to ask people to be involved in this process with me. I'm super private and just kind of head down, go about my life and try to do the best I can with my kids, with my work. And I don't really need much more than that in life, right? And so I kept saying, I want to do this, but I just want to return to my normal life afterwards, right? I just want life to go back to normal, essentially. And then after it happened, that's what happened. Everything just went back to normal until COVID. We don't talk about that. Life went back to normal, and I thought, that's great. That's exactly what I wanted. The after effects of this on me are wonderful. I'm healthier. I take better care of my body. I drink a ton of water. I never drank water before. I feel really good. But what do I do now? Right? Like, I'm just walking around here with one kidney. Like, what do I do? And how do I use my story, this experience, to encourage others or to educate others that this is a possibility, that there are people out there that need this. And there are people like me who are walking around with 2 perfectly healthy kidneys that don't need both of them, right? So I think I still struggle with that, because I don't want to boast or brag, and I don't want it to be about me, but I don't want to squander the experience or not use it for more good, right? So I'm, like I said, when I got your message about doing this, I was like, yes, I need to do that. I need to, encourage and talk about this again and find a way to connect with others that may be considering this, or for people that are waiting for it and need to hear from a donor like me that just picked it up and ran with it, and that there's hope, that there's other people like that out there that would, be able to do that too. But to be honest, I said it was easier than having children. It was easier, like the actual surgery and recovery part of it was easier than recovering from having babies. I was back to pretty much 100% within 2 weeks. So I'm super fortunate and super lucky. I know that there's people that have complications and they work through those, but I think that for the most part, people have really good experiences with it and recover really well. But now it's like, what now? How do I get involved? Do I get involved in donate, life? Do I donate money? So I'm still struggling with that, to be honest, about where do I take it from here. I talk to Steve about once a month. We have a really great relationship, and so I'm fortunate for that we stay in contact, and he's doing amazing. When we hang up the phone, we say, I love you, and it's just a really cool thing, and it's a bond that is just irreplaceable now, from someone I didn't even know over, a year and a half ago. And he's super, just super wonderful about the whole process, and grateful, and living his life as healthy as he can too. Like that's really helpful for me to know that he's really taking care of his body. He's doing everything he can to be healthy too. And that encourages me to do the same. So that is a benefit that is really, really neat. But other than that, what do I do? How do I get more involved? How do I help others find their way to this if they're thinking about it? That piece is a little bit still unknown for me. And maybe once my kids are a little bit older, I'll have a little more time for that too, So just I feel like I'm still just listening and waiting for what God wants me to use this for, right? Like what purpose does it have now? What this journey, where does it go from here? Or is there something else? I don't know. That's a little bit hard.
That's a lot, and thanks for sharing that with us. And I can't wait to see in the future where that leads you as you discover it.
Right.
My last question for you, I don't know if you have any more, but what is the biggest misconception, or like the thing that you maybe heard the most, or most surprising, that you want to debunk to people, that maybe you heard when, from strangers or from family or friends, when people found out that you were donating or had already donated?
I think the biggest thing that I worried about, and maybe that my husband, who's also named Jay, worried about, was my future health, right? And so how does this impact me if I need a kidney someday? If something happens to my kidneys, what happens to one of my kids' kidneys, right? And that was a huge what if, and a reason that took a thing that took a lot of discernment on, because you don't want to live your life with the what ifs, but you have to consider some of those things, right? Like, and I didn't know. I didn't have a great answer, other than if you've donated a kidney, you rise to a higher point on the list if something happens to the kidney that you have as a living donor, right? And so I'm like, okay, well, that's enough for me to know. But there has been no change in our health insurance costs, anything like that. I recovered really well. I feel, like I said, more healthy because I take better care of myself than I did before when I had 2 kidneys. And that's just on me, I could have been doing these things before, but I do them now to take better care of myself so that I am as healthy as I can possibly be with 1 kidney. But I don't exactly know the future as I get older, as my body gets older, what my body will do medically. But I know enough that I feel confident that my donating my kidney will not be the reason that I, am no longer on earth, right? Like I know enough, they know enough. You can live really healthy and a long time with 1 kidney. And so I think that's somewhat of an unknown, but to debunk it and say, this is absolutely possible. People can live really healthy lives with only 1 kidney and not affect their longer term health. And again, I'm healthier after doing it, And like I said, my health insurance didn't go up or anything like that. So that's maybe one of the bigger ones that people commented on. What if something happens to you later on in life? What if something happens to one of your kids? Mm-hmm. And my answer to, if something happens to one of my kids, I will get the biggest megaphone that there is and just shout everywhere about this and about doing this. And, like for my best friend whose son has kidney issues, I will be his biggest cheerleader if this, ever happens to him. That there are people out there willing to do this, and it's not quite as scary as maybe it seems.
Wow. Well, I mean, I have another question. I just wanted to compliment you, and because I think you, in your own way, are already a great advocate, and you have a network of other people, like you say, online who are also doing the same thing. So I just think, again, we're honored to have you on the show, of course. And I just think that's the reason for the creation of this show, because we wanted to help other people tell their stories, kind of debunk, like, Laura was saying, debunk some of the myths that come along with it, because it's a scary process. It can be very intimidating. And also just the awareness of it, just to spread the awareness of it, because I think that more people like yourself want to donate, but they see all these roadblocks, whether it be financial or whatever. So I just appreciate you coming on and educating our audience. Yeah, it's been
Sure.
great.
Yeah, thanks so much for all you guys are doing. This is a really cool thing, and I'm excited to be a part of it and excited to see where it goes and how many people it will help, because I truly think it will. So thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you everybody for watching. Continue watching out for other episodes where we're going to have other donors, recipients, people who work in the transplant field, as well as family members on. And have a great day.
All right. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss our next guest.
We need your help to spread support and awareness for organ transplant donation.
Please share this video and channel with your friends.
Tell someone something that you learned or heard from today's guest.
Get in touch with us if you'd like to join us as a guest.
See you next time.